She was alone. No co-pilot. No passengers. No one in that basket but her in the open sky. And at 10,000 feet, when everything started going wrong, there was no one to turn to. No one to share the fear. No one to make the decisions but her. Most people, in that moment, would have frozen. She didn't. But before we get to what she did, you need to understand what she was facing. Because when you hear the full story, the updraft that wouldn't release her, the burner that started dying, the fuel gauge needle sinking towards zero above a wilderness with nowhere to land, you will understand that what Sarah did that morning was not just survival. It was something else entirely. Something that will stay with you long after this video ends. Sarah had always done things alone. Solo road trips. Solo hiking trails. A solo sailing weekend at 29 that her mother still brings up at family dinners. She wasn't reckless, she was intentional. She researched everything. Prepared for everything. She had the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who had never yet found a reason not to trust herself. The hot air balloon license had taken her 11 months to earn. Weather systems. Fuel calculations. Emergency descent procedures. She had studied all of it with the same focused discipline she brought to everything. Dozens of supervised flights. Full certification. A clean, impressive record. On a cool Sunday morning in late September, she drove alone to the launch field before sunrise. The sky above her was a deep, clean navy, slowly bleeding into amber at the eastern edge. Perfect visibility. Light surface winds. A forecast the regional weather service had marked as ideal. She inflated the balloon herself. Checked the burner twice. Checked both fuel tanks, full, enough for 3 hours with comfortable reserve. Radioed her planned route to the ground monitoring station. Filed her solo flight log. Everything was right. Everything was ready. She fired the burner, released the tether, and lifted off at 6:47 in the morning. For the first 40 minutes, it was everything she had ever dreamed of. Floating above the countryside in absolute silence. The patchwork of farms turning gold as the sun cleared the hills. A silver river catching the early light below. The sacred, private quiet of a sky that belonged only to her. She was smiling. Genuinely, completely at peace. Then she looked northwest. The clouds that hadn't been there 20 minutes ago were there now. Weather in the mountains moves faster than most people realize. Sarah knew this. She had read it in every manual. Heard it from every instructor. But knowing a fact in a classroom is very different from watching it happen in real time above you with no one beside you to confirm what your eyes are seeing. The clouds were dark at the base. Not black, not yet, but the kind of dense, heavy gray that carries wind inside it. She reached for the radio. Ground station, this is Sierra 1. I'm seeing cloud build northwest. Current position approximately 14 kilometers from launch. What's the updated forecast? A pause. Then, Sierra 1, we're showing a front moving faster than predicted. Recommend you begin return descent. Wind at surface is picking up. She was already on it. Vent line open. Watching the altimeter. But the balloon wasn't descending. It was drifting northwest, directly toward the cloud line, and it was climbing. She pulled the vent harder. The balloon climbed. She tried a controlled burn to find a lower, calmer wind layer. The balloon climbed. 3,000 feet became 4. 4 became 5. The launch field was already invisible behind her. And the radio, without warning, went to static. She tapped it. Tried again. Nothing. She was alone. Truly, completely alone. and the sky was pulling her up whether she wanted to go or not. 8,000 feet. The cold hit her like a wall. Not the cool morning chill she had dressed for, this was the raw, deep cold of altitude, the kind that gets inside your jacket and doesn't leave. Her fingers stiffened around the vent line. Her breath came out in hard white clouds. 9,000 feet. That was when the burner started coughing. Not a mechanical failure, not yet. But an inconsistency. A hesitation. Like an engine that isn't quite sure it wants to keep running. It would fire full and strong, then stutter, then fire again with half the power, then catch properly. Every time it stuttered, Sarah felt it in her chest. 10,100 feet. She looked down. The ground was not a place anymore. It was a concept. A distant blurred world of brown and green separated from her by 2 full miles of empty air. There were no roads visible. No towns. Only the dark endless rise of forested hills spreading toward a mountain range that had no business being this close. She had drifted 21 kilometers off course. She pressed both hands flat on the instrument panel and made herself breathe slowly. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. The way her instructor had taught her for exactly this kind of moment. You are the pilot, she told herself. You are the only pilot. So think. She pulled the vent line and held it open, releasing hot air from the top of the envelope, the standard method for initiating descent. The balloon rose another 30 feet. She held the vent open longer. The balloon held its altitude. An updraft. A powerful, invisible column of rising air locked beneath her like a fist that would not open. The balloon could not descend because the air itself was pushing up with more force than gravity was pulling down. She was trapped. Not by the balloon. By the sky. She unfolded the navigation map with cold, stiff fingers and traced her position. What she saw made her stomach drop harder than any turbulence. No landing fields. No roads. No flat open ground within any reasonable glide range. Just forest. Dense, unbroken forest giving way to Rocky Mountain terrain to the northwest. If she went down in those trees, no one would find her quickly. Maybe not quickly enough. She reached for the emergency beacon on her belt, checked it was armed, and clipped it back. Not yet. She wasn't ready to call that yet. Then she looked at the fuel gauge. She looked at it for a long moment, the way you look at something you hope will change if you stare at it hard enough. It didn't change. The needle was deep in the red zone. Both tanks. The inconsistent burner had been hemorrhaging fuel every time it misfired, burning inefficient, burning wasteful, and now she had perhaps 35 minutes of heat left. 35 minutes. She said it out loud, quietly, just to hear it. To make it real. 35 minutes of fuel. 10,000 feet of altitude. No radio contact. Forest in every direction. And a burner she could not trust. Completely alone in the sky with 35 minutes to find a way to survive. She made a decision. Stop fighting. Every time she fired the burner trying to battle the updraft, she burned fuel and gained nothing. The updraft was stronger than she was. She could not win that fight. So she would stop fighting it. Instead, conserve. Drift. Let the wind carry her and wait for the updraft to break naturally. Use only what fuel she absolutely had to. Find a clearing, any clearing, and aim for it. She cut the burner completely. The silence was immediate and total. No roar. No heat. Just the soft moan of wind in the rigging wires and the creak of the wicker basket in her own heartbeat, which was louder than she expected. The altimeter needle began, slowly, unevenly, to fall. 9,006. 9,002. 8,008. But the descent was not smooth. The balloon would drop 300 feet, snag on another invisible thermal, rise back up 100. Drop again. Rise. Like being lowered on a rope that someone keeps pulling back. And the fuel gauge kept moving. She watched both, altimeter and fuel gauge, alternating her eyes between them with the calm, mechanical focus of someone who has decided that panic is a luxury she cannot afford right now. Then the updraft broke. And the balloon fell. Not a controlled descent. Not a managed drop. A fall. 350 feet in 18 seconds. The basket swung violently sideways. Sarah grabbed the uprights with both hands and held on as her feet left the floor. The navigation map tore free and disappeared upward into the cold air. Loose equipment crashed against the sides of the basket. She fired the burner on full power, both hands on the control, and the flames screamed to life above her. The envelope shuddered. The fall slowed. Not stopped. Slowed. She was still descending at nearly 700 feet per minute. More than double the safe rate. And below her, filling the entire visible world, was forest. 5,000 feet. 4. She was working the burner in rapid controlled bursts, not burning continuously, which would drain the last of her fuel in seconds, but precise, calculated pulses. By altitude. Bleed speed. By a few more seconds of options. 3,000 feet. She could see the individual treetops now. Dark spires of pine, dense and merciless. No gaps. No meadows. Nothing but green in every direction. 2,000 feet. And then, there. To her left. Maybe 150 meters wide. A break in the trees. A mountain clearing, pale dry grass catching the morning light like a signal. Small. Barely enough. But enough. She had one chance. She adjusted her angle, using short burner pulses to shift her drift line toward the clearing. The wind, the same wind that had terrorized her for 4 hours, was now blowing almost perfectly toward it. 1,000 feet. Fuel gauge on empty. The needle flat against the bottom pin. 500 feet. The clearing filled her entire view now. She could see the texture of the grass. Individual rocks at the edge of the treeline. 200 feet. She grabbed the uprights, locked her arms, bent her knees. The burner gave one last burst. She felt the heat on her face, and then it went silent. Permanently silent. She was coming down. Fast. Too fast. She hit the ground. The impact was violent. The basket bounced, skidded, dragged sideways through the grass for 30 meters, tilted, and rolled. Sarah was thrown against the side of the basket, then the floor, then the side again as the envelope collapsed on top of her with a sound like a wave breaking. Then nothing. Silence. The kind of silence that feels like the world holding its breath. She lay still for a moment, listening to her own breathing. Then she moved. One limb at a time. Testing. Left arm. Right arm. Legs. Everything worked. She pushed the collapsed nylon aside and sat up in the overturned basket. The clearing stretched around her, impossibly peaceful. Mountain grass. A pale blue sky. The absolute, ringing quiet of a wilderness morning. She activated the emergency beacon. Then she sat down on the side of the overturned basket, and for the first time since the updraft had taken her, she let herself shake. Just for a minute. Just to let the fear out of her body. Then she stopped. The rescue team found her 2 hours and 40 minutes later, following the beacon signal into the mountain clearing. When the team leader saw the state of the balloon, the scorched burner housing, the empty tanks, the torn envelope, she asked Sarah how far she had drifted. Sarah checked her instruments. 34 kilometers from the launch site. The team leader looked at the clearing, at the trees surrounding it on every side, at the narrow margin of open ground that stood between Sarah and the forest. She didn't say anything. She just shook her head slowly. That evening, sitting in the back of the rescue vehicle wrapped in a foil blanket with a cup of tea going cold in her hands, Sarah looked back at the mountain through the window. She thought about the moment the updraft had broken and the balloon had fallen. The moment she had looked down and seen nothing but trees. The moment the burner had gone silent for the last time. She thought about all the times she had been told that flying solo was reckless. That she should always have someone with her. That one person alone in a balloon was one person too few. And she thought about how, in the end, one person had been exactly enough. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is not the altitude. It is not the wind, or the failing burner, or the empty fuel tank. The most dangerous thing, the thing that actually kills people, is the moment you decide you cannot handle it alone. Sarah never had that moment. And that is why she came home.